Hi, my name's Gene. I'm a radio guy and a ham radio operator, and I live in Iowa. And I just wanted to talk to some of you guys who are interested in prepping and homesteading, and people who live in remote places. And I live in central Iowa, outside of Des Moines, but I know a lot of people live out in the rural areas, and certainly we're kind of tied down these days to technology, such as our phones in our hands, and we depend on that, and satellite and cable TV, But there's a whole other aspect, especially for people who homestead or want to live remotely or get off the grid. And some of those technologies might be convenient, but they might not have those conveniences. Like internet is pretty good out in the rural areas, but there are some rural areas where I have to work in and I go to where we can't get access to quick internet. So communications in a real emergency could be a problem. But I've been a radio guy since the 1970s. My first radio was a CB. In fact, it was an 8-channel CB called a sonar radio, and it was a little tube radio. So I've been in radio and dabbling in it for quite a long time. But I became a ham radio operator in 2000 and got my first tech license, and I eventually upgraded to general. So I want to talk to some of you preppers and homesteaders a little bit about radio and different types of radio, and this will just be a short introductory video. So in ham radio, a lot of us work in an environment called 100 watts in a wire, and I do a couple different things besides that. I also do medium wave DXing, which is listening to AM radio and monitoring AM radio using different types of analog and digital technology that's available, where you could set up either a computer as a radio by using certain gear, or just set up an AM radio and put up a long wire to it to listen to communications at a long distance. And AM radio is very good for that at nighttime. So if it was like an emergency situation, you could put up a small portable AM radio and tie a long wire antenna to it and hear stations from all over the country. And some people are able to hear stations that are out of the country besides Canada. Some stations they get are from Europe. So it's just some food for thought. But I just want to show you like my basic setup, and I just run a very small ham radio operator station. By the way, my call sign is WN9ZWC. I was formerly KB9WGV. I also have some informal call signs of KB9001 SSB, which is CB sideband, and KB9001 SWL, shortwave listener. So I'm all over the spectrum in the hobby, so to speak. That's a pun, spectrum. So anyway, here's my initial setup. See if I can get a look at this. I have a small monitoring antenna on top, and that's where my wire antenna starts, and it's actually hooked in to the radio on the inside. And this is the box where it hooks in, and this goes into the house. And this is where this is called that's a balloon, and goes to my wire antenna. That goes to my ham radio, and that wire up. There goes Frankie the dog. He's out here with me running around in the snow today. And that goes out to my my impromptu antenna, which I needed to put up. I didn't want to put up a steel tower because they're kind of intrusive and they look a little bit ugly. And I didn't have the right amount of property. I have kind of a small boxed in yard, so I needed to do something which was practical to work for me and also fit the property and not bother the neighbors too much. So basically what I put up is I have here a kind of a piece of PVC, if you can kind of see that. There's a PVC with a long wire that runs all around the yard, and that PVC unit worked out pretty good because I was able to strap it to the fence, and then it bends, and it's actually worked out really, really well. So I don't have to give my perspective here, but it worked out really, really well because it bends in the wind, and we've had some pretty severe windstorms come through here, and it actually did really well because it's extremely flexible, and it withstands the wind because it flexes, and the antenna system as it runs across the yard is just simply a wire, so it has a very low profile. Like in a windstorm, it's barely bothered by wind. And of course, if you're putting up a wire antenna for either listening and transmitting, you have to be careful that you don't go near any power wires either. And that's kind of hard in some tighter yards, but out in rural area, you would have no problem with power antennas. You probably would have your choice of putting up an antenna. Plus, you can use a tree. You could use your tree if you have a tree and put the wire through the tree as well too. You wouldn't even need a tower because you can run wire antennas through trees, and it makes it more stealthy, which is good too. Because then, if you have an extensive operating station, then nobody knows kind of what you're doing, and sometimes you might want to keep that under wraps a little bit. So, but just food for thought. Okay, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a great day.